Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to take a deep dive into the murky depths of Loch Ness.
Oh, the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, have you ever wondered about what the truth is behind the Loch Ness Monster?
Of course.
So we're diving deep into that mystery today.
You know, it's amazing how this one lake in Scotland has just captivated the imaginations of people worldwide for centuries.
It really is. So get this. Did you know that the legend of the Loch Ness Monster actually stretches back way further than those grainy photographs, that we always see?
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking like ancient history here.
We're talking about Pictish carvings that are over 1,500 years old.
Wow.
These ancient Scottish tribes were incredibly detailed when it came to depicting animals in their art.
Yeah.
So the fact that they chose to carve this mysterious water creature is pretty intriguing, don't you think?
Yeah, they were creating those images long before all this 20th century Nessie mania.
Right.
Really makes you wonder what they saw or believed in.
And the Picts weren't the only ones who were fascinated by water creatures.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Scottish folklore is full of tales of these water horses and kelpies,
Okay.
supernatural beings that haunted the waters, and they would often take the form of horses to lure people in
Oh my.
to their doom.
That's creepy.
I know, right?
So are you saying that the Loch Ness Monster could actually be tied to these ancient myths and legends?
It's certainly possible. I mean, these stories were so deeply embedded in Scottish culture that it's easy to see how they might have influenced later beliefs about a monster in the loch.
Right.
And speaking of beliefs, we can't forget about the very first written account we have of a Loch Ness Monster encounter.
Okay.
This dates all the way back to 565 AD.
Wow, 565 AD. That is a long time ago.
I know, right? It's a time when Christianity was just starting to spread in Scotland.
Yep.
And St. Columba, a key figure in that process, was traveling near Loch Ness, and he came across a rather dramatic scene. Locals were burying a man who they claimed had been attacked and dragged underwater by a water beast.
A water beast. Okay, now that's a deep dive. We've got ancient carvings,
I know.
spooky folklore, and now a 6th century saint battling a water beast.
Exactly. It's like layers and layers of mystery.
Yeah.
Skeptics will point out that tales of water beasts were pretty common back then, but
Yeah.
the St. Columba story is still a really captivating piece of the puzzle.
Totally. So what happened next? Did St. Columba just stand there and watch?
Well, not quite according to Adomnin.
Okay.
Columba's biographer, the saint, decided to take matters into his own hands.
Okay.
He instructed one of his followers to swim across the river,
Oh my God.
and as the beast approached the swimmer, Columba, being a holy man, made the sign of the cross and commanded the creature to retreat.
No way did it actually work.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
According to the account, the creature stopped as if it had been pulled back by ropes.
Wow.
And then it fled in terror. Pretty dramatic, right?
That's intense. And it really makes you wonder, was this encounter just a product of the times, or was there something truly unexplainable lurking in the depths of Loch Ness?
Excellent question. It seems like even back then, the loch had a pretty spooky reputation.
Yeah.
But things really took off in the 20th century.
We'll have to hear more about that in just a minute.
Yes, we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Stick around, folks. The Nessie saga is just getting started, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Make sure to follow or subscribe to the Deep Dive so you don't miss part 2 of our deep dive into the mystery of the Loch Ness Monster. We'll be back in a flash.
Welcome back. So, where were we? Ah, yes, the 20th century.
All right, the era of Nessie mania. It's fascinating how this legend really went into overdrive, in the 1900s.
Right.
What do you think was the cause of that sudden surge in interest?
Well, a lot of it can be traced back to 1933,
Okay.
when a new road was built alongside Loch Ness. Before that, it was a pretty remote area, but this new road opened up access to tourists and workers.
Yeah.
So, more eyes on the loch meant more potential for, let's just say interpretations of what might be lurking beneath the surface.
Right. More people around, more chances for someone to see something unusual and shout, Nessie.
Exactly. And it wasn't long before a sighting really caught the public's attention.
Okay.
A woman named Aldi Mackay reported seeing an enormous creature rolling and plunging in the water.
Wow.
Some reports even compared it to a whale.
A whale in Loch Ness.
Yeah.
That would definitely turn some heads.
Oh, yeah. And so the Inverness Courier, a local newspaper, they picked up the story.
Okay.
And their editor quite cleverly, I might add, decided to use the word monster in the headline.
And that's when, like, the legend of the Loch Ness Monster as we know it was born?
You could say that the name stuck, and from then on, sightings started pouring in from all over.
Oh, wow.
People described seeing all sorts of things, giant fish, sea serpents, even something that resembled a dragon.
That's crazy. Do you think any of these sightings could have been influenced by the hype itself? Like people seeing what they wanted to see?
Oh, undoubtedly the power of suggestion is a very real thing. But, some of the accounts came from, like, seasoned observers,
Right.
which makes them a bit harder to just dismiss.
Okay, so tell me about one of those.
Okay, well, in that same year, a man named George Spicer claimed to see something truly bizarre.
Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Tell me more.
Well, Spicer and his wife were driving alongside the loch when they encountered a creature unlike anything they'd ever seen before.
Oh, wow.
He described it as having a long, narrow neck,
Okay.
kind of like an elephant's trunk, and just this massive body.
Oh, my gosh.
It lumbered across the road in front of their car and then disappeared into the water.
He saw it on land. That's a pretty bold claim.
It is, and he said it was the closest thing he could compare it to was like a dragon
Wow.
or a prehistoric animal.
So that's where we get that image of Nessie as this plesiosaur-like creature with, like, the long neck and the massive body.
That's right. The Spicer sighting, along with a few others, really helped solidify that image, in public imagination.
Right.
However, some researchers now think that Spicer's description might have been influenced by the movie King Kong, which had just come out,
Really?
and it featured a long-necked dinosaur emerging from a lake.
Wait, so you're saying a blockbuster movie could have actually influenced eyewitness accounts of the Loch Ness Monster? That's hilarious.
It really highlights how cultural trends can shape our perceptions, even when it comes to something as seemingly objective as an eyewitness account.
Yeah, that's wild.
But speaking of perceptions, we can't talk about Nessie without mentioning the most iconic piece of evidence in this whole saga.
Oh, here we go.
The surgeon's photograph.
The photo that launched 1,000 conspiracy theories.
Yeah, the one that supposedly proved that Nessie was real.
Okay, so remind me about this photograph.
Okay, so it was taken in 1934, and it was allegedly taken by a London gynecologist named Robert Kenneth Wilson.
Okay.
And the photo showed what appeared to be the head and neck of a plesiosaur-like creature rising from the water.
But there's a twist, right? This evidence was not all that it seemed.
You could say that, for starters, Wilson refused to even have his name associated with the photo.
Oh, really?
Which is why it became known as the surgeon's photograph.
Right.
And over the years, skeptics began to point out some inconsistencies with the photo, like the size of the ripples, the scale of the creature in relation to the background.
Yeah.
Something just wasn't adding up.
So spill the tea.
Yeah.
What's the real story behind this infamous photograph?
Well, in 1994, the truth finally came out.
Okay.
The photo was a hoax.
A hoax.
An elaborate act of revenge orchestrated by a man named Marmaduke Wetherell.
Whoa, a revenge plot. This is even better than a monster story. What happened?
Well, Wetherell was this big game hunter, and he had been hired by the Daily Mail to find evidence of Nessie.
Okay.
And he actually found some footprints, which were later revealed to be a hoax.
Oh, no.
So humiliated, Wetherell decided to get his own back on the newspaper.
I love it.
He got together with a few accomplices, and they built a toy submarine.
Nice.
Then they added a head and neck that was made of wood putty.
Oh, my God.
And they took their creation out to Loch Ness, and they snapped that infamous photo, making it look like a giant creature emerging from the depths.
So the most famous evidence for the Loch Ness Monster was just a toy submarine.
Yep.
That's both brilliant and disappointing.
I know, right? It was a major blow to Nessie believers, for sure. But even with the surgeon's photograph debunked, the sightings just kept coming, and the mystery of Loch Ness only deepened.
It's amazing how even after they found out the surgeon's photograph was fake, people still kept seeing Nessie.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's something about this mystery that just won't quit.
It's true. And, with each passing decade, new attempts emerged to try to solve the riddle using, like, increasingly sophisticated technology.
Like sonar. That has to be one of the coolest ways to, like, search for something hidden in the depths of a lake.
Absolutely.
Right.
Starting in the 1960s, researchers, they launched several sonar expeditions to try to get a glimpse of what was down there.
Oh, wow.
One of the most famous was Operation Deep Scan in 1987.
Okay.
It was a whole fleet of boats equipped with sonar.
Wow.
Scanning the loch from side to side.
That's incredible. What did they find? Did they get any sonar readings that suggested Nessie was real?
They did get some pretty strong readings
Really?
that pointed to something large moving in the loch, which
Oh.
naturally fueled a lot of excitement
Right.
among Nessie believers.
But sonar technology, even though it's cool, has limitations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't those readings have been caused by something other than like a giant monster?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
There are actually natural phenomena in Loch Ness that can create illusions
Okay.
of large objects moving around, which can really confuse those sonar readings.
Like, what kind of things would make the sonar think there's a monster down there?
Okay, well, you have to consider like the unique characteristics of Loch Ness.
Okay.
It's a very long and narrow lake, and it's prone to something called internal seiches.
Internal seiches? What are those?
They're essentially underwater waves.
Oh, okay.
Like imagine the wind pushing the warmer surface water to one end of the loch, and then that water sloshes back, creating these underwater waves that can actually move objects around and create these strange sonar readings.
So a log, or even a school of fish, could show up on the sonar as a large moving object and people would think it was Nessie.
Exactly.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's a plausible explanation for at least some of those sonar contacts.
Right, but not all of the sonar readings can be explained that easily.
It got even seasoned researchers like Adrian Shine, who's dedicated his life to studying Loch Ness, admit that there are certain sonar readings that they just can't explain.
So there's still some mystery. Okay, but what about DNA analysis? Couldn't that give us a definitive answer about what's swimming in Loch Ness?
You would think so. In 2018, researchers conducted a major DNA study.
Okay.
They took water samples from all over Loch Ness,
Oh, wow.
hoping to find genetic traces of the creatures that live there.
Right.
The results were surprising, to say the least.
What did they find? Was there any trace of a monster?
They found tons of eel DNA.
Eel DNA. So Nessie's just a big eel.
Well, not quite that simple. While the abundance of eel DNA was intriguing,
Right.
the study didn't find any evidence of plesiosaurs or other large creatures that, would fit that classic Nessie description.
So does that mean the DNA study ruled out a monster?
Not necessarily. Here's where it gets interesting. 25% of the DNA that they collected remains unidentified.
Unidentified DNA. So there could be something lurking in Loch Ness that we haven't even discovered yet.
That's the thing about science. It raises more questions than it answers.
That's true.
And the unidentified DNA opens up a whole new realm of possibilities.
That's crazy. So we've got these sonar contacts and unexplained DNA and centuries of sightings. So what do the leading Nessie experts make of all this?
There are a few key figures who've spent years trying to unravel this mystery.
Okay.
One of them is Adrian Shine. The researcher we mentioned earlier, he's actually spent over 50 years studying Loch Ness.
Wow.
And he believes that if there's something unusual in those waters, it's likely a large fish.
What kind of fish are we talking about?
He suggested it could be a sturgeon or a catfish or even a giant eel.
A giant eel that would make sense with all the eel DNA.
Right.
What about other Nessie experts? Are there any that have other theories?
There's Gary Campbell, who runs the official Loch Ness Monster sightings register. He's dedicated to documenting and analyzing all the reported sightings.
Okay.
And he believes that there's likely a family of unknown creatures
Okay.
living in the depths of the loch, possibly large fish, and that sightings happen when they accidentally surface.
So he's not ruling out that there's something really unique down there.
Nope.
I like his style.
I know.
Has he ever had a Nessie encounter himself?
He has. Back in 1996, he saw an unexplained hump in the water,
Oh, really?
which is actually what inspired him to start the sightings register. Talk about dedication.
That's amazing. Are there any other Nessie hunters that we should know about?
We can't forget about Steve Feltham. He's been living on the shores of Loch Ness for over 30 years.
Wow.
Fully committed to finding the monster.
30 years, that's longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
What's his take on the mystery?
His leading theory right now is that Nessie is actually a giant Wells catfish.
Okay.
These catfish can actually grow to enormous sizes,
Wow.
and they could explain some of those sightings.
Yeah.
But even Steve, acknowledges that there are things about Loch Ness that we just don't understand.
Right.
He's reported some pretty intriguing sonar contacts at the very bottom of the loch.
Oh, really?
Some as big as a van.
What? Okay, so even with all the science and the debunking of hoaxes like the surgeon's photo, the mystery of Loch Ness is still alive and well.
It really is. It's a place where science and folklore collide,
Yeah,
and where the line between, like, fact and fiction gets a little blurry.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an incredible journey diving deep into the legend of Nessie, and I'm more fascinated now than I was before we started.
Me too.
There's something so captivating about the idea that maybe there's something unknown out there, something that defies our understanding of the natural world.
I agree. And who knows, maybe lurking in the depths of Loch Ness, there really is a creature yet unknown to science waiting to be discovered.
Right.
And if it is a giant catfish,
Yeah.
well, that's pretty amazing too.
Exactly. So, to all of our listeners out there, we encourage you to do your own research, head online, and check out the Loch Ness Monster Sightings Register.
Definitely.
See the evidence for yourself, weigh the theories, and decide what you believe.
You never know. Maybe one day you'll even have a Nessie encounter of your own.
Right. That would be amazing. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the mystery of the Loch Ness Monster.
Don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating deep dives into the unexplained.
Until next time, keep exploring the world and all its mysteries.